The rain had been relentless all morning, turning the small dirt path behind the church into a sticky, muddy mess. I was standing under the awning of the old chapel in Charleston, South Carolina, trying to shield my hands from the cold as I watched people hurry past, heads down, anxious to escape the drizzle. And then I saw her, her boots sunk slightly into the mud, water dripping from the hem of her coat, hair plastered to her forehead. She looked like she had walked through a storm not just outside, but inside her life. Without thinking, I called out, telling her it was okay to step inside. She froze, glanced down at her boots, and whispered, almost ashamed, that she was sorry for the mess. I wanted to tell her that muddy boots could never erase the grace in someone's soul. I wanted her to know that no heels, no fancy shoes, no polished appearance could ever compare to the strength and beauty in someone brave enough to face life head-on. If you believe in the power of kindness, second chances, and seeing the best in people, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Her name was Grace. She was in her late 20s, a photographer who had moved to Charleston to escape a past that had been crueler than any winter storm. Her eyes were tired, but they still held sparks of curiosity. We sat on the worn wooden pews, the smell of old oak and candle wax comforting in a way that made it hard to imagine the pain she carried. Grace told me she had just lost her job at a gallery, that her savings were nearly gone, and that her cat, her only family, had fallen ill. Each word seemed to weigh on her, yet there was a flicker of defiance in the way she spoke, as if she refused to give up despite the chaos. I shared my own story too. My life hadn't been easy either. I was a single father raising a 6-year-old daughter named Hannah, juggling a small bookstore and endless nights of worry about bills. The bookstore was my sanctuary, but it was also my battlefield, filled with unpaid invoices and the constant threat of losing the only place that kept my family afloat. Yet standing there with Grace, listening to her speak of loss, I felt a strange kinship. Life had a way of throwing mud at us, sometimes literally, but it didn't define who we were. Days turned into weeks. Grace came to the bookstore almost every afternoon, boots caked in mud from walks along the nearby riverside. She had a habit of photographing the small, unnoticed details around Charleston, the way the sunlight hit the old brick walls, the reflection of clouds and puddles, the way people's hands moved as they worked and loved. I started noticing her presence not just as a customer, but as someone whose heart had begun to touch the edges of mine. One rainy afternoon, she came in with tears streaking her cheeks, and I realized that the strongest people often cry the hardest. I didn't try to fix her life. I just offered her warmth, a cup of coffee, and the reassurance that muddy boots were better than any heels. That day, she smiled through the pain, a smile that seemed to say, I am not defeated yet. Over time, the bookstore became a gallery of Grace's work. I hung her photographs along the walls, each image telling a story of resilience and quiet beauty. People who came in for books stayed for her photographs, moved by the way she captured hope in places most overlooked. Grace's laughter began to echo between the shelves, a sound that filled every crack in my weary heart. And Hannah adored her, following her around, asking endless questions about photography, about the world, and about why people sometimes wore muddy boots even when they wanted to be elegant. Grace would bend down, letting Hannah hold her camera, and show her how to see the world not as it was, but as it could be. One evening, as the sun dipped below the Charleston skyline, casting a golden hue across the cobblestone streets, Grace stood outside the bookstore, boots dirty, coat damp, hair loose and wild, and looked at me with a mixture of gratitude and something deeper I couldn't name. She whispered that she had never felt so understood, so seen, so accepted for who she truly was. And in that moment, I realized that life wasn't about the perfect shoes or the perfect job or the perfect past. It was about moments like these, muddy, messy, yet undeniably beautiful. The rain returned the next morning, and Grace was gone for a while, but her presence remained, woven into the bookshelves and photographs, into the small rituals of daily life. And when she returned, bringing with her a portfolio of photographs ready for an exhibition. She had this quiet confidence, the kind that comes only from someone who has faced the storm and chosen to keep walking anyway. I looked at her boots, still streaked with mud, and told her the truth. They looked better than any heels because they carried her story, her courage, her journey. Life is full of these unexpected encounters, moments where someone walks into your life, muddy and unsure, and leaves behind a trail of hope and inspiration. Grace reminded me that beauty is not in perfection, it's in persistence, vulnerability, and the courage to keep moving forward even when the path is messy. If this story touched your heart, let it remind you that kindness changes lives, that second chances matter, and that sometimes, muddy boots are better than heels. Please like, share, and comment below. Let me know how this story resonated with you. And before you go, I have a special request. Comment on the one thing in this story that made you feel hope again. Because in a world that often judges by appearances, sometimes it takes muddy boots to show the true beauty of a soul.